My son's fiancée called me a nobody. Her mother said I used to deliver newspapers. My son stayed silent. They didn't know I once turned down a $1 million office for my dying wife. Now I'm exposing them all. Before we begin, please subscribe, and I'd love to know, where in the world are you listening from? How do you win a war you didn't even know had begun, until your family turned on you with a smile? The kitchen timer chimed at exactly 6:30. I pulled the roast from the oven, the smell filling my modest Glenview home with something that used to mean celebration. Tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight I was finally going to connect with Melissa, Derek's fiancée, and her mother Charlene. Build some trust before the wedding. Maybe even get to know the woman my son had chosen to spend his life with. I adjusted the table settings one more time, straightening Laura's good china, the set she'd insisted we save for special occasions. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd been gone 3 years, and I was still using her dishes to impress people who probably wouldn't notice. The doorbell rang at 7. They were 30 minutes late, but I pushed down the irritation. First impressions matter, especially when you're trying to make a second one. Derek walked in first, looking uncomfortable in his pressed khakis and buttoned down. Behind him came Melissa, stunning in that calculated way that costs money, and Charlene, who swept into my living room like she was evaluating real estate. "Sorry we're late," Derek mumbled, but Melissa didn't even acknowledge it. She was already scanning my furniture, her eyes lingering on Laura's crocheted throw pillows with barely concealed disdain. "What a cozy little place," Charlene said, her voice dripping with the kind of politeness that cuts deeper than insults. "Very lived in." I forced a smile. "Can I get anyone a drink? I have wine, beer, or—" "Do you have anything imported?" Melissa asked, settling onto my couch like she was doing me a favor. "I'm really particular about wine." "I've got a nice Cabernet from Napa Valley." She exchanged a look with her mother. "Domestic will have to do, I guess." Dinner started pleasantly enough. I asked about their day, their plans, anything to keep conversation flowing. But every time I tried to contribute, mentioning Derek's childhood, sharing a memory about Laura, Charlene would redirect with surgical precision. "George, you mentioned you're retired now," Melissa said, cutting into her roast with deliberate slowness. "What exactly do you do with your time these days?" "I read quite a bit. Work on some home projects. I've been helping out at the VA Center, teaching financial literacy to veterans." Melissa's laugh came out sharp and cold. She leaned back in her chair, studying me like I was a curiosity. "That's cute. Derek told me you used to wear these old-fashioned suits to work. I figured you were like a clerk or something, or maybe you delivered papers." Charlene tapped her manicured fingers against her wine glass, chuckling. "Melissa, be nice. Not everyone can keep up with the times, especially your father-in-law." I set my fork down slowly, feeling something dark and familiar stirring in my chest. Derek stared at his plate, silent as a stone. His silence hit harder than both their jabs combined. "This is my house," I thought. "My table. My family. And I'm being erased." Then Melissa delivered the killing blow. "Let's be real here. You're just a nobody who got lucky enough to raise someone worth marrying." The words hung in the air like smoke from a gun. Even Charlene's smirk faltered for a moment. I stared at Melissa, then glanced at Derek, waiting for him to say something. Anything. Nothing. I took a long breath, keeping my voice low and controlled. "Melissa, you think you know me?" Something behind my eyes must have unsettled her, because her smirk twitched. I stood slowly, feeling every pair of eyes on me, probably expecting outrage or defeat. "Excuse me," I said with icy politeness, and walked out of the dining room. In the hallway, I stopped in front of the family portrait, Laura, Derek, and me, all beaming from happier days, the only version of the past that still smiled at me. "What a drama queen," I heard Melissa say from the dining room. I stared at that photograph for a long time. They think they've won. They think I'm small. They have no idea. The man they laughed at once built empires. Now he's rebuilding himself, with fire in his veins. I walked into my study, closing the door behind me with deliberate care. The room was small but organized. Leather-bound books, framed photos, and remnants from a life they knew nothing about. I sat heavily in my old desk chair and opened the bottom drawer. Inside lay a leather address book, unopened, for over a decade. My fingers didn't tremble with weakness as I reached for it. They trembled with restraint. I flipped through names I hadn't thought about in years, pausing at one. Fred Collins. Next to it, a faded post-it note. "You ever need me, call." No questions. The memories came flooding back like a dam breaking. 1997. I was 34, walking into Crestbrook Securities in downtown Chicago, with the kind of presence that made junior staff stand straighter when I passed. Clean-cut, razor-sharp, magnetic. I had it all within reach. Warren Hemsworth slapped a folder on my desk that Tuesday morning. "You're up for VP, corner office, big clients. You want it?" I stared at the folder, then at my phone. 3 missed calls from Northwestern Memorial. Laura's coughing fits had gotten worse. I closed the folder without opening it. "I need to go home. My wife needs me." Warren's face hardened, but he nodded. Not many men would walk away from this. Whitman. I walked out of that building for the last time, not knowing I was trading everything for love. And I'd do it again. By 2004, I was working at a local firm doing forensic accounting. Underpaid, overworked, but Derek was 16 and needed college tuition. I remember writing that check by hand, watching the numbers drain our account while a stack of unpaid bills leaned against the fruit bowl. Derek grabbed an apple from the counter, mumbled, "Thanks, Dad," and left for school. I stared at the checkbook afterward. "One more zero," I whispered to the empty kitchen. "One more promise." The worst part came in 2012 at Derek's college graduation. I sat alone in the back row while the crowd cheered. When Derek spoke at the podium, thanking his friends, his mentors, everyone who supported him, my name never came up. Not once. I clapped anyway, my face blank, my soul hollowed out. A father swallowed by his own shadows. But sitting in my study now, I felt something else stirring, something they'd awakened without meaning to. I picked up the landline and dialed Fred's number. The line rang once, twice. "Collins?" "It's Whitman." A pause. Then, "Holy hell. Thought you were dead." "Not yet. But they will wish I was." 2 days later, I met Fred at Willow Heights Golf Club. He was nursing bourbon at the Marble Bar, looking exactly like the man who'd once moved mountains with a phone call. "Didn't think I'd see you again." "Whitman," he said, not bothering with pleasantries. "I'm not here to reminisce. I need information." We found a quiet corner. I told him about Melissa and Charlene, about the dinner, about Derek's silence. Fred listened without interruption, his expression growing darker. When I finished, he laughed bitterly. Charlene Grant. That woman couldn't manage a lemonade stand without 5 credit cards maxed out. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through some private documents. "Look at this." The numbers made my blood run cold. Charlene was $1.3 million in debt. Her mansion was on a second mortgage with unpaid taxes flagged. The whole glittering facade was about to collapse. "She's one scandal away from total implosion," Fred said, leaning closer. "But there's more." He told me about Melissa in Miami 2 years ago, on the arm of a different fiancé. Ryan Wexler, a tech entrepreneur who'd lost hundreds of thousands to a woman he trusted. After their engagement collapsed, Ryan had moved to California, broken and bankrupt. "It's a pattern," Fred explained. Mother and daughter target men with money or future assets. They play the long game. The pieces clicked into place like a lock opening. This wasn't about love or family. This was business. I sat back, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, the old George stirring to life, the man who'd once commanded boardrooms and closed million-dollar deals, the man who'd sacrificed everything for love, but never forgot how the game was played. I need to protect Derek, I said quietly. But more than that, I need to expose them. Fred warned me. This will get dirty. Charlene plays hardball. And Melissa? She's worse. I met his eyes with steel in mine. I was underestimated once. They won't make that mistake again. Fred pushed a small business card across the table. Travis Merrick, Private Financial Investigations, discreet, untraceable. I pocketed it and stood, adjusting my coat. It's not revenge, Fred. It's restoration. Outside the club, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Whitman? A woman's voice, composed but urgent. I think we need to talk. My name is Lisa Montgomery. Laura's best friend. The woman who'd warned my wife about people exactly like Melissa and Charlene. The woman who'd stayed away after the funeral because grief makes cowards of us all. Lisa, I said, feeling pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. I was wondering when you'd call. You don't destroy a mask by tearing it off. You wait until they wear it under the brightest light, and let it crack. Lisa Montgomery sat across from me at Rosie's Cafe, the same corner booth where she and Laura used to spend Sunday mornings planning charity events. Her silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her eyes held the same sharp intelligence I remembered from all those years ago. I heard about what happened at dinner, she said without preamble, stirring her coffee with precise movements. That girl is a parasite, George. I warned Laura about people like that. You haven't spoken to me since the funeral, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Why now? Lisa's expression softened for just a moment. Because Laura would never forgive me if I let her son get destroyed by a gold digger while his father sat there and took it. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. I've been watching Melissa for months. I work part-time doing PR consulting for nonprofits and hedge funds. I hear whispers. Her name keeps coming up in the wrong circles. What kind of circles? Vincent Cole's circles. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Lisa said it made my skin crawl. Vincent has a long trail, she explained. Alleged scams, asset siphoning, ghost companies. He always avoids arrest because he's careful, uses other people to do his dirty work, like pretty young women with wealthy fiancés. Lisa outlined her plan with the precision of a military strategist. She would pose as executive assistant to a fictional European investor, offering Melissa a backdoor deal into an exclusive startup funding circle. All meetings would be recorded. No direct threats, I insisted. Let her hang herself with her own rope. Agreed. But George, we need to hit Charlene too. She's the one pulling the strings. That's when I had my idea. I spent the next 2 days designing the perfect trap. A formal printed invitation to a fictional charity gala. The Crestbrook Restoration Fund. The letterhead mimicked an actual donor network from my past, altered just enough to avoid traceability, but authentic enough to fool someone desperate to appear wealthy. Charlene's name appeared as keynote patron, with a suggested donation of $50,000. I mailed it from a post office across town, then rented a real ballroom for the evening. If you're going to stage a play, you need a proper theater. Lisa moved fast on her end. Within 24 hours, she had Melissa agreeing to a meeting at a rented executive suite downtown. She's eager, Lisa texted me. Almost too eager. I watched from a coffee shop across the street as Melissa arrived for the meeting, dressed head to toe in designer gear that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. She walked with the confidence of someone who'd never been caught. Lisa played her role flawlessly. Professional, intrigued, just vague enough to seem legitimate. Melissa took the bait like a starving fish. "I know someone who has access to millions in trust assets," Melissa bragged, not knowing she was being recorded. "My fiancé's family has legacy money." She dropped Vincent Cole's name confidently, claiming she had access to a deal funnel through him. She even pitched a fake real estate opportunity she and Vincent were consulting on. "The beauty of family trusts," Melissa explained with a smile that would have fooled anyone who didn't know better, "is that beneficiaries rarely understand what they're signing, especially when they trust the people handling their finances." Meanwhile, Charlene arrived at my fictional gala, dressed to kill, assuming she'd be center stage. I watched from a side entrance as she took the stage, prompted by the hired MC, and loudly pledged $50,000 to thunderous applause from the carefully selected crowd of strangers. When the assistant attempted to process the payment, the system flagged her card. Declined. Charlene's smile faltered. "That's impossible. Try it again." Second card. Declined. Third card. Declined. The MC maintained professional composure. "We can settle this privately afterward, Mrs. Grant." But whispers had already begun. In a room full of actual donors, news travels fast. I slipped away quietly as Charlene tried to salvage her dignity, but the damage was done. By the next morning, a lifestyle blogger who'd been at the event posted a piece titled, "Prominent Philanthropist Can't Deliver on Pledge at Crestbrook Gala." The article circulated quickly through Charlene's social circles. Her phone started ringing with concerned acquaintances, each call chipping away at her carefully constructed image. But Charlene was tougher than I'd expected. Instead of retreating, she went on the offensive. "This is sabotage," she told anyone who would listen. "Someone's trying to destroy my reputation." She was right, of course, but being right wouldn't save her. The pressure got to Melissa first. Lisa reported that she was frantically calling Vincent, trying to move up their timeline. Whatever they had planned for Derek, they wanted to execute it fast. "She asked to meet again," Lisa texted me. "Wants to bring Vincent next time. We're in." That night, I sat in my study, reviewing everything we'd gathered. Audio recordings of Melissa discussing asset extraction, financial documents proving Charlene's bankruptcy, evidence of Vincent Cole's criminal associates. But I needed one more piece, something that would make Derek see the truth for himself. I picked up the phone and called Travis Merrick, the private investigator Fred had recommended. "I need you to find Ryan Wexler," I told him, "the tech entrepreneur from California. I want to know exactly what Melissa and Vincent did to him." "How deep you want me to dig?" "All the way to China, if you have to. I need ammunition that can't be disputed." 3 days later, Travis called back with information that made my blood run cold. Ryan Wexler hadn't just lost money to Melissa. He'd lost everything. His company, his house, his savings. Vincent had convinced him to sign papers transferring his assets into a trust managed by shell companies. "The beautiful part of their scam," Travis explained, "is that it's technically legal. Complex financial instruments that most people don't understand. By the time the victim realizes what happened, the money's already gone." "Where's Ryan now?" "Working construction in Sacramento, living in a studio apartment, still paying off debt from the whole mess." I made a decision that Laura probably would have questioned, but would have understood. I flew to Sacramento. Ryan Wexler was exactly what I'd expected. A broken man who'd learned too late that love can be weaponized. We met at a diner near his construction site, and I told him everything. "I knew something was wrong," he said, staring into his coffee. But I wanted to believe her. Vincent made it all sound so reasonable. "I need you to record a statement," I told him. "Help me save my son from the same fate." Ryan looked up at me with eyes that had seen too much. "What do you need me to say?" That evening, I flew back to Chicago with a USB drive containing Ryan's full testimony. Everything Melissa and Vincent had done to him, they were planning to do to Derek. The trap was set. All I needed now was the courage to spring it. I called Derek and left a simple message. "Son, I need to see you. It's about your future. Come alone." The most dangerous lie is the one they tell while thinking they're safe. Derek showed up at my house the next evening, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. He stood in my doorway with his hands shoved deep in his pockets, avoiding eye contact. "You said it was about my future," he said, stepping inside reluctantly. "What's this about, Dad?" I led him to the living room, the same space where Melissa had humiliated me just weeks before. But tonight felt different. Tonight, I held the cards. "Sit down, son. We need to talk." He perched on the edge of the couch like he was ready to bolt. "If this is about Melissa and the dinner thing, I don't want to hear it. You embarrassed everyone that night. Did I? Or did I just refuse to sit there while your fiancée called me a nobody?" Derek's jaw tightened. "She didn't mean it like that." "How did she mean it, Derek? Explain it to me." He couldn't. We both knew it. I pulled out the USB drive that contained everything: Lisa's recordings, Ryan's testimony, the financial documents. "Before you say another word, I need you to listen to something." "I'm not listening to whatever conspiracy theory you've cooked up." "It's not a theory. It's your fiancé's voice." That stopped him cold. I inserted the drive into my laptop and hit play. Melissa's voice filled the room, clear as day. "I know someone who has access to millions in trust assets. My fiancé's family has legacy money." Derek went pale. "Where did you get this?" "Keep listening." Vincent's voice came next, smooth and confident. "The beauty of family trusts is that beneficiaries rarely understand what they're signing, especially when they trust the people handling their finances." "This is fake," Derek whispered, but his voice cracked. "Then how do you explain this?" I played the next clip. Melissa again. "Derek's trust is the perfect backdoor play. He doesn't even ask questions." Derek stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. "This can't be real." "Vincent Cole," I continued, advancing the recording. "Once the transfer's complete, he'll be broke, and won't even know why." The laptop speakers went quiet. Derek stood frozen by the window, his reflection ghost-like in the glass. "There's more," I said gently. "But first, I need you to understand something. This isn't about me being right or you being wrong. This is about protecting you from people who see you as a paycheck." I told him about Ryan Wexler, about the pattern Melissa and Vincent had perfected. I showed him the financial documents proving Charlene's bankruptcy, the evidence of Vincent's criminal network. Derek listened without interrupting, his face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally, devastation. "How long have you known?" he asked finally. I suspected something was wrong the night of the dinner. But I didn't have proof until this week. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I looked at my son, really looked at him, for the first time in years. Would you have believed me? Or would you have accused me of being jealous and bitter? He had no answer for that either. "What do I do now?" he asked, slumping back onto the couch. "You confront her. But Derek, you need to be smart about this. If she knows we have this evidence, she'll disappear. Vincent will make sure of that." We spent the next hour planning his approach. Derek would meet Melissa at their shared condo, claim he'd received an anonymous tip about her past, and see how she reacted. If she tried to deny everything, he'd play the recordings. "What if she admits it but says she's changed?" Derek asked. "What if she says she loves me and wants to start over?" "Then you'll know she's still lying. Love doesn't plot to steal from the person it claims to care about." The next day, Derek called to set up the meeting. I could hear the tension in his voice when he told me how it went. "She knew something was wrong the moment I walked in," he reported. I could see it in her eyes. "What did you say?" I told her I'd received some information about her and Vincent, asked her if there was anything she wanted to tell me. And she went on the offensive immediately, started accusing you of poisoning me against her, said you were jealous and manipulative. That's when I knew for sure. Derek had played the audio recording right there in their living room. Melissa's reaction confirmed everything we'd suspected. At first, she tried to deny it was her voice, Derek continued. Then she claimed it was taken out of context. When that didn't work, she broke down and admitted everything. She confessed. Not exactly. She said it was Vincent's idea, that she got in too deep, that she still loved me. But Dad, when I asked her to explain why Vincent said I'd be broke and not know why, she couldn't give me a straight answer. I felt a surge of pride. My son was finally thinking clearly. What happened next? I told her to pack her things and get out. She threatened to ruin my reputation if I exposed her, said she'd tell everyone I was abusive, that I'd cheated on her. Empty threats. She needs you more than you need her. I hope you're right. But Melissa wasn't done fighting. 2 days later, Derek called in a panic. She's moved back in with Charlene, he said. And Dad, they're planning something. Melissa called my office, tried to schedule a meeting with my boss, said she had information about my family's finances that might affect my security clearance. I felt the old anger rising. She's desperate, trying to burn everything down on her way out. What do we do? It was time to stop playing defense. We go nuclear. I called Travis Marek and gave him new instructions. Within 48 hours, he'd leaked Charlene's financial documents to a regional finance blog. The article ran with the headline, "The Illusion of Wealth, Charlene Grant's Luxury Lifestyle Unravels." Mortgage delinquency, tax liens, bounced checks, asset seizures. The press didn't go easy on her. By the end of the week, Charlene's country club membership had been revoked, and she was being asked to step down from 2 charity boards. But Charlene still had 1 card left to play. She showed up at a community function where she knew I'd be present, and in front of 50 people, she accused me of being vindictive and manipulative. George Whitman is a bitter widower who can't handle being irrelevant, she announced to the shocked crowd. He's been stalking my family, spreading lies about my daughter because he's jealous of their happiness. I didn't respond. I just stood there and let her rant, watching her unravel in real time. Someone in the crowd started recording on their phone. By the next morning, the video had gone viral on local social media pages. Instead of making me look bad, it painted Charlene as unhinged and desperate. The final blow came when Lisa delivered Vincent Cole's audio recordings to an anonymous legal contact. Within a week, Vincent was being investigated for fraud in 3 states. He tried to reach Melissa, but she'd blocked his number, finally realizing the ship was sinking. That's when Derek called with the news I'd been waiting for. They showed up at my house, he said. Melissa and Charlene. Together. What did they want? Melissa was begging for a second chance. Charlene looked desperate and angry. Dad, they want to meet with you. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. Do they now? What should I tell them? Tell them I'll be happy to meet, but Derek, I want you there too. It's time to finish this. The pieces were all in place. The truth was out. The evidence was overwhelming, and my son finally understood who these people really were. It was time for the final confrontation. The house of cards they built wasn't meant to fall, but they forgot who owned the wind. They showed up at Derek's house on a gray Thursday afternoon, desperation hanging around them like cheap perfume. I was already inside, sitting in his kitchen when the doorbell rang. Derek looked at me, and I nodded. You want to handle this? He asked. Gladly. I stepped onto the porch to face them. Melissa looked like she'd aged 5 years in 2 weeks. Designer clothes wrinkled, makeup unable to hide the dark circles under her eyes. Charlene stood behind her, trying to project authority, but failing miserably. "George," Charlene began, her voice attempting warmth. "We need to talk. There's been a terrible misunderstanding." "Has there?" I kept my voice level, controlled. "Please enlighten me." Melissa stepped forward, tears already forming. "I made mistakes. I admit that. But I love Derek, and I think we can work through this." "Work through fraud? Work through conspiracy to steal from my son?" "It wasn't like that," she pleaded. "Vincent manipulated me. I was in over my head. I never wanted to hurt Derek." Charlene tried a different approach. "Melissa was led astray by that man. She's still family, George. She's still going to be your daughter-in-law." That's when I delivered the words I'd been saving for weeks. She was never family. She was a lesson, one you both failed to learn. The color drained from Charlene's face. "You can't prove anything. All you have are recordings that could have been doctored." "Can I?" I pulled out my phone and played a new recording, one they hadn't heard before. Ryan Wexler's voice filled the air, calm and clear, describing exactly how Melissa and Vincent had destroyed his life. "There are 3 other victims," I continued as the recording played, "all willing to testify, all with documented financial losses. Would you like me to play those testimonies too?" Melissa broke down completely. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just give me another chance." Derek spoke from the doorway behind me. "No, Melissa. I loved you. But you never loved me. You loved what you thought I'd become, not who I am." She turned on him with sudden venom. "You were nothing before me. A boring accountant with no ambition. I made you interesting." "There it is," I said quietly. "The real Melissa. The one who's been hiding behind that smile." Charlene made one last desperate play. "We'll sue you for defamation, for harassment. You've destroyed my daughter's reputation with lies." I looked at her with something approaching pity. "You'd have to prove the truth is a lie first. And Charlene, given your current financial situation, I doubt you can afford the legal fees." "What financial situation?" I smiled. "The one where you're $1.3 million in debt. The one where your house is in foreclosure. The one where you've been borrowing money from friends to pay for gas." Her face went white. "How did you know?" "Because unlike you, I actually understand finance. I know what real wealth looks like. And I know what desperation disguised as wealth looks like." "You're nobody," Charlene snarled, her mask finally slipping completely. "A washed-up has-been who couldn't even afford to send his own son to college without going broke." "You're right," I said calmly. "I did go broke sending Derek to college. But I did it by choice. Because that's what love looks like. Sacrifice without expecting anything in return." I stepped closer. "You want to know who I really am, Charlene? I'm the man who walked away from a corner office at Crestbrook Securities to take care of his dying wife. I'm the man who gave up millions to make sure his son had a future. And I'm the man who's going to make sure you never hurt another family the way you tried to hurt mine." Melissa was sobbing now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Please, George, I'll disappear. I'll never contact Derek again. Just don't destroy me completely." "I'm not destroying you, Melissa. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided my son was a mark instead of a man." Derek stepped forward. "It's over. Both of you need to leave. Now." Charlene made one final threat. "This isn't finished. We'll find a way to—" "To what?" I interrupted. "Vincent's being investigated by the FBI. Your financial crimes are about to become public record. And in about 6 hours, every major news outlet in Chicago is going to receive a very detailed report about your daughter's pattern of targeting wealthy men." It was a bluff, but they didn't know that. They left without another word, Melissa still crying, Charlene still trying to maintain some shred of dignity as they walked away from my son's life forever. Derek and I stood on the porch watching them go. After their car disappeared around the corner, he turned to me. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "A big one." "You don't owe me anything, son. You just needed to see the truth for yourself. I should have defended you that night at dinner. I should have seen what they were." I put my hand on his shoulder. "Love makes us blind sometimes. Your mother taught me that. She also taught me that real love sees past the blindness." We went back inside, and Derek made coffee while I sat at his kitchen table. For the first time in years, we talked, really talked, about Laura, about his childhood, about the choices I'd made, and the ones he was making now. "What happens next?" he asked. "Next, we rebuild. We honor your mother's memory, and we make sure her foundation helps families avoid what almost happened to you." Foundation. The Laura Whitman Foundation. Financial literacy for families. Lisa's going to help me run it. Derek smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from him in months. Mom would have loved that. She would have loved seeing her son stand up for himself, even more. 2 weeks later, the local finance blog published a follow-up article titled "Grant Family Empire, Built on Borrowed Time and Stolen Dreams." The investigation had expanded beyond Charlene's personal debts to include several questionable business ventures she'd been involved in over the years. Melissa had quietly left Chicago, reportedly heading to Florida. Vincent Cole was arrested in Nevada on charges related to securities fraud. The web was finally unraveling. Lisa called me that evening. "You did it, George. You protected Derek and exposed them without destroying yourself in the process." "We did it," I corrected. "Laura would be proud of you. She'd be proud of both of us." That night, I sat in my study with a glass of scotch and looked through old photo albums, pictures of Laura, of Derek as a child, of birthdays and holidays and quiet Sunday mornings, the life we'd built together, one sacrifice at a time. My phone rang. Derek. "Dad, I was thinking about Mom tonight, about that story she used to tell about the woman who planted trees she'd never see grow. I remember. I think I understand it now. You planted trees for me that I'm just starting to see." After we hung up, I walked to the window and looked out at the city skyline. Somewhere out there, Melissa and Charlene were probably planning their next move, their next target. But they wouldn't find another Derek Whitman, and they wouldn't find another family unprepared for their lies. I thought about calling it revenge, but that wasn't accurate. Revenge is about punishment. This had been about protection, about truth, about ensuring that love, real love, could grow in soil that hadn't been poisoned by deception. The man they'd laughed at, the nobody they'd dismissed, had taught them something Laura had tried to teach me years ago. The most powerful people are often the ones who don't need to prove their power. They just use it when it matters most. You don't just bury the past. Sometimes you carve it into stone and build something better on top. 3 months later, I found myself standing in Laura's old art studio, watching Derek install the final computer station. Dust motes danced in the afternoon sunlight, streaming through windows she'd once stood by, painting watercolors of the garden she'd never see bloom again. "Hand me that screwdriver," Derek said, focused on mounting the monitor to the wall. I passed it to him, marveling at how natural this felt, working together, building something that mattered. "You know," he said, not looking up from his work, "I keep expecting her to walk through that door and ask us what we're doing to her studio." "She'd probably tell us we're doing it wrong," I replied, and we both laughed. The Laura Whitman Foundation had become real faster than I'd expected. Lisa had thrown herself into the project with the same intensity she'd once brought to exposing Melissa and Charlene. Corporate sponsors, community partnerships, volunteer coordinators. She handled it all with the efficiency of someone who'd found her purpose. Derek had surprised me most of all. After everything settled with Melissa, He'd asked to take a leave of absence from his job to help launch the foundation full-time. "I want to understand what you walked away from," he'd told me. "And I want to make sure other families don't get torn apart the way we almost were." Now, looking at him carefully routing cables behind the desk, I saw Laura in the concentration on his face, the way he bit his lower lip when he was thinking. But I saw myself in his determination to get it right. "There," he said, stepping back. "Computer station number 5, fully operational." The banner on the wall read the Laura Whitman Foundation, Financial Literacy for Families, in Laura's favorite shade of blue. Her photograph sat on the main desk, surrounded by the tools we'd used to help other families avoid the traps that had almost destroyed ours. Lisa walked in, carrying a box of newly printed brochures. "These look perfect," she said, showing us the trifold pamphlets. "Simple language, clear examples, and that photo of Laura really ties it all together." "She would have edited them twice more," I said, running my finger along the edge of one. "At least twice," Lisa agreed with a smile. The foundation's first public event was scheduled for the following Saturday. We'd invited 50 families from the community center, plus local financial advisors who'd volunteered their time. Nothing fancy, just information, honest conversation, and free lunch. That Friday evening, my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Florida. "Hello, Mr. Whitman." Melissa's voice, smaller than I remembered. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from." "What do you want, Melissa?" "I saw the article about your foundation online. I wanted to apologize. Really apologize. Not the fake stuff I tried before." I waited, saying nothing. "I know you probably don't believe me, but losing Derek was the wake-up call I needed. I've been in therapy, trying to understand why I did what I did." "And what have you learned?" "That I was angry at the world for not giving me what I thought I deserved, and that I hurt good people because I was too scared to be good myself." Her voice cracked slightly. "Derek was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I threw it away because I thought I could find something better. There is nothing better. Is that all? I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and I wanted to say thank you. Thank me for stopping me before I destroyed him completely. For protecting your son when I was too selfish to see what I was doing to him." After she hung up, I sat in my study for a long time, thinking about forgiveness and second chances. Laura would have forgiven Melissa by now, would have found some way to help her heal. I wasn't there yet, might never be, but at least I could acknowledge that some people are capable of change. Saturday morning arrived with perfect autumn weather. Families began arriving at the community center by 9:30. Parents with children in tow, elderly couples holding hands, young adults clutching notebooks. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces that reminded me of Derek's childhood friends, of neighbors from our old block, of the life Laura and I had built together in this community. "Good morning," I began. "My name is George Whitman, and 40 years ago, I thought I knew everything about money." A few chuckles from the audience. I was wrong about almost everything that mattered. I thought wealth meant big paychecks and corner offices. I thought financial security came from impressing other people. I thought providing for my family meant working more and being home less. I found Derek in the crowd, sitting with Lisa in the third row. He nodded encouragingly. "My wife Laura taught me that real wealth is measured in relationships, not bank statements. That financial security means having enough to be generous, not enough to be envious. And that providing for your family means being present for the life you're building together." I told them about walking away from Crestbrook Securities, about choosing love over money, about learning that sacrifice without resentment is the foundation of everything worthwhile. The Laura Whitman Foundation exists because my wife believed that financial literacy should be about more than just balancing checkbooks. It should be about understanding what money can and cannot do, about recognizing when people are trying to exploit your trust, and about building wealth that serves your values instead of replacing them. The applause was warm and genuine. I looked at Laura's photograph on the display table, imagining her proud smile. The rest of the morning flew by. Workshops on budgeting, sessions on recognizing financial scams, roundtable discussions about college savings and retirement planning, families asking real questions, getting honest answers, connecting with each other and with resources that could help them build better futures. During lunch, a young mother approached me. "Mr. Whitman, thank you for this. My ex-husband left us with a lot of debt, and I've been too embarrassed to ask for help understanding it all." "That's exactly why we're here," I told her. "Financial predators count on people being too proud or too scared to ask questions." "Like those people who tried to hurt your son?" Word had gotten around about Melissa and Charlene, though we'd never made their story part of the Foundation's official narrative. Exactly like them. As the afternoon wound down, Derek helped me pack up the display materials while Lisa coordinated with volunteers about follow-up sessions. "So," Derek said, carefully wrapping Laura's photograph in bubble wrap, "how does it feel to be back in the business of helping people with money?" "Different than before," I replied. "Better. More honest." "Think Mom would approve?" I looked around the community center, at families still clustered in small groups, sharing contact information and making plans to stay connected. At Lisa shaking hands with the volunteer coordinators, already planning next month's workshop. At Derek, who'd found something worth building instead of something worth escaping. She'd probably say we're just getting started. That evening, I drove to the cemetery alone. I brought daisies, Laura's favorite, and knelt beside her headstone. "We did it, sweetheart," I said quietly. "Derek's okay. The Foundation is real, and I finally understand what you meant about planting trees." The wind rustled through the oak tree beside her grave, the same tree where Derek used to climb as a child when we visited her parents' graves nearby. I kept my promise. I protected our son, and now we're rebuilding, just like you always said we would. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years, not because the weight was gone, but because I'd learned how to carry it properly. Walking back to my car, I thought about the book idea Derek had mentioned weeks ago. Reclaimed: The Quiet War of George Whitman. Maybe someday I'd write it, though I'd have to leave out half the story, or nobody would believe it. But that was okay. The best stories aren't always the ones that get told. Sometimes they're the ones that get lived, quietly, by people who understand that restoration takes longer than destruction, but lasts infinitely longer. My phone buzzed as I reached the car. A text from Lisa. 3 more families want to volunteer for next month's workshop. This thing is really taking off." I smiled, looking back toward Laura's grave one more time. The man they'd tried to erase had become the man she'd always known I could be, and that felt like the best revenge of all, the kind that builds something beautiful instead of just tearing something down. Driving home through streets we'd once walked together, I realized that some wars are won, not by defeating your enemies, but by becoming someone they can't touch. Someone who understands that the most powerful victories are the ones measured in lives saved rather than lives destroyed. They'd tried to make me smaller. Instead, they'd helped me remember how to be whole.